power to wish upon a star and unlock its magic. Are you ready to wish upon a star? Then it's time to open your heart and remember, dreams come true. Disney parks are some of the most visited places on Earth. Millions of people walk through their gates each year, ride the attractions, and experience the magic. But what if I told you that some of your most beloved Disney memories had been recycled before your very eyes? That's right, Disney doesn't just reduce, reuse, and recycle with cans and bottles. They also do it with their world-class audio animatronics. These figures are incredibly expensive, so when an attraction closes, Imagineering doesn't always start from scratch. Instead, they find creative ways to give these old figures new life. Today, we're counting down 5 times Disney recycled animatronics without you ever noticing. Number 1. The World of Motion Mammoth. The 1964-65 New York World's Fair was a collection of public spaces, pavilions, and international exhibits located on a 650-acre expanse in the middle of New York State. Though it was neither owned nor operated by Disney, Walt and his Imagineers were asked to contribute some of their expertise to exhibits at the fair. Several Disneyland classics debuted here, including The Carousel of Progress, It's a Small World, and Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. One of the attractions that Walt Disney Imagineering worked on, however, didn't make the cut, and never found a permanent home at Disneyland. Not in its entirety, at least. That attraction was Ford's Magic Skyway, commissioned by who else other than Ford Motor Company. Guests rode in modified Ford Mustang vehicles and traveled through time from the distant past into the distant future. This was also the debut of the Ford Mustang. So, just a fun fact. That's just a fun fact. Again! The Ford cars ran on a system that would later evolve into other Omnimover systems, such as the People Mover and Haunted Mansion. Narrated by Walt Disney, it began with a trip through the primeval world, with scenes of dinosaurs doing dinosaur stuff. These very same dinosaur scenes can still be viewed today, just as they were in 1965, as the finale to the Grand Circle Tour of Walt Disney's original Magic Kingdom on board the Disneyland Railroad. Following the iconic battle between the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Stegosaurus, guests would transition into the Ice Age. In a scene that would later inspire the opening to Epcot's Spaceship Earth, guests would be heralded by a caveman who was greeting the morning sun.
Salute the sun!
Like the Primeval World dioramas, the Age of Man, as it was called, featured several scenes, like cave painting and the creation of fire. But the scene that we're interested in is this one. The cavemen hunting a mammoth. Walt Disney admittedly didn't like how this portion of the ride turned out. There's a reason he only salvaged the dinosaur animatronics.
Fatality.
He offered Ford a chance to feature a reimagined version of the attraction at Disneyland, on Ford's dime of course, but Ford refused. The rest of the project was scrapped, with the Imagineers having learned enough from its ride system to improve upon it with rides like the People Mover and Haunted Mansion. But there was one other figure that Imagineers managed to save. I will admit, when I still had my pass, I went and verified this in person because I didn't believe it when I read it. But this elephant, way in the back, that's just a shaved mammoth, baby.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
It's in the same position and everything. I even went and double-checked and verified historical photos of the Jungle Cruise to make sure that it appeared within the right years. Here's an instance of the elephant bathing pool as it opened with the ride in 1955. And, well, there are no elephants. That's because the Indian elephant bathing pool was a later addition to the Jungle Cruise. It wasn't added until 1962. And this is just a really funny and dated publicity blurb that I thought would be fun to read you guys. Here, I'll give it my best 60s announcer's voice. Nearly 24 life-size Indian elephants like these playful fellows will splash and squirt.
What?
Will splash and squirt and spray at Disneyland this summer in the new Adventureland Jungle River Cruise. It's so 60s. Big ones and little squirts. They'll cavort for explorers, taking the boat trip down jungle waterways, where a new African veldt, complete with lions, tigers, zebras, giraffe, laughing hyenas, and other animals, is also taking shape for the June opening. The 2-year, $7 million Disneyland expansion will also include the world's largest treehouse for the summer of '62. And here's an example of the elephant bathing pool as it appeared in 1962.
Wow.
Note the absence of the mammoth. That's because it's not until photos dated after 1965, i.e. after the World's Fair, that we start to find photo evidence of the mammoth, sans one fur coat. And he's still out there. I mean, I did see him, like a few months ago, before my pass expired. You can go see him today, one of the last relics of a forgotten attraction at a temporary event from before you were born. Most of you anyway. Number 2, the World of Motion chickens. Epcot, or as it was known then, Epcot Center, opened to the public on October 1st, 1982. Wanting to pay homage to the old World's Fair of ages past, the park consisted of 2 major lands, World Showcase and Future World, with smaller pavilions within. Legend has it that they couldn't decide which aspect of the World's Fair they actually wanted to emulate, the futuristic technology aspect or the international cooperation aspect. And so, in a bout of frustration, the 2 competing park models were smushed together, and Epcot, as we know it today, kind of, was born. I don't have time in this video to verify whether or not that's true. It's probably not. But what's important for our purposes is that Future World consisted of 6 pavilions. The land, the seas, imagination, Communicore, Spaceship Earth, which I didn't think counted as a pavilion, but that's what Wikipedia said, and the World of Motion. Oh, and I guess it's 7 because I did forget the Energy Pavilion. And I don't know if it had Ellen on opening day. That'd be a fun video for later. The nightmarish Ellen DeGeneres animatronic. The pro-oil Ellen DeGeneres ride featuring Bill Nye the Science Guy and Alex Trebek. Because that's a real thing that was in a Disney park and it was like 40 minutes long. It's Guardians of the Galaxy now.
Oh, you stink!
World of Motion was intended to teach guests about the technology and history behind transportation. Edutainment was the name of the game for the 80s, and boy, did Epcot Center deliver. In the location of present-day Test Track, instead of taking a high-speed thrill ride through, Tron, I guess, but not Tron officially, and ending in a Chevy dealership, guests would instead board 6-person Omnimover vehicles that would take them on a whimsical tour of the history of transportation. And it still ended in a dealership. It was very much the spiritual successor to Ford's Magic Skyway, which is why this is number 2. You see? You see what I did?
Brother, this guy stinks!
With scenes designed by the legendary Ward Kimball, who is also a steam train, the scenes were well populated by audio animatronics. Scenes included the invention of the wheel, a chariot dealership, the painting of Mona Lisa, and Leonardo da Vinci's flying machine.
Does it work? What? What are you asking? Does it work, Leonardo? Can it really fly? I don't know. Have you tried it? No. It's too dangerous. To test it, you'd have to leap off a tower. Who would be mad enough to do a thing like that?
First of all of the historical footage that I'm using is credited, but some of it is from this really incredible virtual recreation of the ride by Futureport 82. And hopefully I figured out some way to link to that video because the attention to detail is really amazing here. And so much easier to imagine what's going on as someone who never got to experience it firsthand. And this is a whole other tangent, but when I was watching ride-through footage of World of Motion, I saw this sea serpent and I knew that I had seen him somewhere. When World of Motion closed, this prop was also repurposed, and it was flown across the country to Disney California Adventure, where he graced the backlot with his presence from 2001 to 2011, when he was removed for Electronica, which makes that 2 Tron-themed things that displace this endangered species from his natural habitat. He's also like a character in the weird Disney ARG, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, aka Seas? From their stupid nightclub that everyone won't shut the fuck up about. I was like 3 when it closed. Wait, it opened in the 90s, it closed. Look, I couldn't go. So stop referencing it. I don't care. We need more Kingdom Keepers bullshit in here. Did you know this guy from the Haunted Mansion is the big bad of the Kingdom Keepers? I've always hated him. He scares the shit out of me. It's a good thing that he's the fucking villain. I've never read Kingdom Keepers. What am I doing? Anyway, the scene that we're interested in is this one, the world's first traffic jam. This was the final scene to feature anything physical. The rest were speed tunnels. The world's first traffic jam featured a startled horse, several cars, spilled produce, and lots of chickens.
Look at all those chickens!
World of Motion ultimately closed its doors on January 2nd, 1996. But do you know what other legendary Disney World attraction opened its doors in 1996? That's right, Goofy's Barnstormer. Or should I say, the attraction formerly known as the Barnstormer at Goofy's Wiseacre Farm, which opened with the rest of Mickey's Toontown Fair on October 1st, 1996. The Barnstormer aptly incorporated the barn from the former tenant of the space, Grandma Duck's petting farm. Who is Grandma Duck? By smashing out the sidewalls, the coaster was able to traverse right through the structure. Wait, what's that? In a very much blink and you'll miss it moment on the actual ride, when you fly through the former petting zoo barn, there are several crates of chickens. Thankfully, these lovely ladies are also visible from the queue, and were repurposed from the traffic jam scene in World of Motion. They made their home here until their permanent removal when Mickey's Toontown Fair was rethemed to Storybook Circus, and the Barnstormer at Goofy's Wiseacre Farm became Barnstormer featuring Goofy as the Great Goofini. What's with these long ride titles? And with that, the chickens from World of Motion had finally laid their last. I was going to find a funnier chicken joke, but they took them to the slaughterhouse.
Oh, it's like an oven in here.
Come on!
Wait up!
No, they just took the chickens away.
We've got to get out of here.
There's some other figures from World of Motion that were salvaged, not just the sea serpent that I discovered midway. But if you want to know more about those figures, you're going to have to like and subscribe and comment on this video so that I can make a part 2. This is only 5 entries. I had 10, but the script was getting a little long, so I figured I would break it up. Hey guys, I have some big news. Well, kind of. I have my very first unofficial sponsor today in the form of the one and only Magic Candle Company. And if you want to keep your home smelling like vacation, then click my link in the description and use code LAURAKEET at checkout for 15% off your order. My favorite is obviously the Pirate's Candle, but they have lots of amazing fragrances. So again, go ahead and click that link in the description and use code LAURAKEET at checkout for 15% off your order. Thank you so much to the Magic Candle Company, and now let's get back to those reused animatronics. Number 3, the Mickey Mouse Review. The Mickey Mouse Review is lesser known to most US Disney Parks fans, unless you happen to be a Florida local or visit Magic Kingdom during the 1970s. That's because this was the very first attraction to close at Magic Kingdom, meeting its fate in 1980. Now, this isn't because it was horribly awful like Superstar Limo, or flat out didn't work like Luigi's Flying Tires. It was removed because when the Oriental Land Company was doing tours of the park to essentially shop for new attractions at their park, they loved the Mickey Mouse Review so much that they had it dismantled and shipped to Tokyo, where it would reside for the next 26 years. So if you happen to visit Tokyo Disneyland anytime between when it opened and 2009, you were probably, at the very least, made aware of this attraction's existence. The attraction wasn't groundbreaking or mind-blowing by any means. I think it's kind of creepy, honestly. But I can see why the Oriental Land Company had to have it, and why it appealed so much to Japanese Disney fans. It's a delightful country bear-style animatronic musical show featuring animatronics of some well-known Disney characters and some more obscure ones as well. Wait, what? Who are those? Which one? What are these ones? So I looked it up because I did have to look it up. And they're Abner Country Mouse and Monty City Mouse. What? And they're a pair of characters from the 1936 silly symphony short, The Country Cousin.
What?
Okay, I can't be expected to know that. Nor could any guest be expected to know that. In fact, I don't think anybody who ever rode that ride knew who they were. Anyway, apparently they also appeared in Who Framed Roger Rabbit? ? Anyway, the show featured classic Disney characters performing classic Disney songs like Snow White, Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, and the Three Caballeros. Disney World fans, do these look familiar? They should, because these three figures were shipped back to Orlando to be used in the re-theme of El Rio de Tiempo at Epcot. Housed in the Mexico Pavilion, El Rio de Tiempo was a slow-paced, ambient boat ride through scenes of Mexico. I wish I had more to say about it, but that's pretty much all it was. It was boring. There really wasn't much to it, which is why, in 2007, it was rethemed to the Grand Fiesta Tour, starring the Three Caballeros. The ride is basically more or less exactly the same, but with the animated edition of Panchito, Jose, and Donald on the existing screens. And of course, for the finale, we get to see the characters we've been following through the entire ride come to life in 3 dimensions before our very eyes. And that's how these 3 birds flew from Orlando to Tokyo and back. And I know what you're gonna say. I said 2009, right? If you've been to Tokyo Disneyland anytime from opening to 2009, you would be made aware of this attraction. But the re-theme of El Rio de Tiempo at Epcot happened in 2007, right? So for the first 2 years of that attraction, they actually didn't have the figures at all. They were like just screens. And it was just kind of underwhelming. I went to Disney World for the first time in 2007. I know we went inside the Mexico Pavilion, but oh no, the bird! I know that we went inside the Mexico Pavilion, but I don't think we rode the boat ride. I actually don't remember at all. I was 11. And then when we went again in 2014 is when I remember riding it like for the first time. And so they already had the figures. They're also over 50 years old. They've got some amazing history. And Disney recently did a piece where they showcased the repair and restoration of these figures ahead, I think, of the 50th of the resort of Magic Kingdom, actually. That's the only one that turned 50. And in the Mickey Mouse review, it looks like I counted 3 of each of these animatronics, which is probably the only reason that we still have them, because we don't have 3 of each of them anymore. They've been cannibalized for parts. These things are expensive and hard to make and maintain, is what I've learned. Defunctland can tell you more. Anyway, number 4, Snow White. Snow White's Scary Adventures was the original name of Snow White's Enchanted Wish at Disneyland, but it was also the name of an opening day attraction at Magic Kingdom. Based on the 1937 animated movie, Snow White's Scary Adventures, the Orlando version, was similar to Disneyland's, but reportedly even more scary. Snow White was not seen at all, and the dwarves only briefly appeared in one scene. It mainly focused on the witch, her lair, and her attempted murder of Snow White at the end of the film. Now, the presence of Snow White's Scary Adventures, both at Disneyland and Magic Kingdom, has always been a source of confusion for park guests. It's my cat. Hey Mabel, how you doing? She's deaf as a doornail, she can't hear me at all. But if we look to some of the history of theme parks in general and of Fantasyland, I can shed a little bit more light on why they had a scary ride in the middle of Fantasyland. You see, the original attraction resided in a park that didn't have a haunted mansion, and haunted houses have long since been a staple of theme parks and fairs and just entertainment in general. And the original Fantasyland in Disneyland, and the one still there at Magic Kingdom, at least the front part, Old Fantasyland, was themed more towards one of these traditional fairs. And Snow White's Scary Adventures was meant to emulate the haunted house pretzel dark ride of places like Coney Island. Famously, you're also supposed to be experiencing the attraction from Snow White's perspective, which that would be pretty abbreviated and frightening. Anyway, the original version of the attraction was actually rethemed and toned down in 1994, but Snow White as we know it was ultimately replaced for good in 2012. As part of the new Fantasyland expansion to Magic Kingdom, Snow White closed its doors forever, May 31st, 2012. In its place, there is now a princess meet and greet. Princess Fairy Tale Hall. Many of the figures, however, were able to find a new home in the very expansion that displaced them. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is a Vekoma family swinging coaster, getting coaster cred, that opened to the public on May 28th, 2014. And still over 10 years later, it's still the longest ride at the park on any given day. And no, you're not getting fast passes for it. Or a lightning lane, I guess. Fuck you for making me pay for fast passes. Built on the site of the former 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea Lagoon, visible from the queue at the end of the ride is this quaint little cottage. When you're on the actual ride and waiting to pull into unload, you can see in through the windows, and inside you can spot the actual figures from the original Snow White ride at Magic Kingdom. And also the vultures from the very beginning are from Snow White as well. And now you know. So you too can appreciate these historical figures next time you're waiting to unload on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, wondering if it was really worth the rope drop. It wasn't. It's not very good. Sorry. Number 5, America Sings. I know. These ones are on every list, but I think it's worth talking about because there are a couple of them that end up in a place that you wouldn't expect. To those of you who didn't understand my previous sentence, America Sings opened at Disneyland on June 29, 1974 to celebrate the American Bicentennial. Located in the former Carousel of Progress building in Tomorrowland, it replaced the former tenant, which had just been shipped over to Disneyland's brand new sister park, Magic Kingdom. Why was an attraction celebrating America's Bicentennial in Tomorrowland and not like Main Street? America Sings was another audio animatronic stage show, and similar in nature to the Carousel of Progress, featured a rotating theater design. What made this design innovative was that for both Carousel of Progress and America Sings, the theater seats were the things that rotated, not the stage. The attraction was a showcase of Americana, or American folk music,
Featuring a bit of Americana, our musical heritage of the past.
just
They
waiting
ask
for
you
the
how you are,
truth.
you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would.
The attraction was a showcase of Americana, or American folk music, and featured a dynamic cast of singing animals who sung classics like Home on the Range, Yankee Doodle, and Camptown Races. Lasting a full 12 years past the event it was meant to celebrate, America Sings finally closed its doors on April 10th, 1988. But that wasn't the last Anaheim had seen of these talking animals. Mere days after America Sings' closure, crews had already begun the task of transferring the audio animatronics from America Sings into the then under construction Splash Mountain. Both the cast of America Sings and The Song of the South were designed by Mark Davis, which meant that the America Sings figures were a perfect visual fit for the new log flume. Over 100 audio animatronics were salvaged in this way and spent almost 35 years in their new home, Splash Mountain. But not all of them. You see, about a year or so before the attraction closed, these quartets of geese became trios. They were skinned, their heads were removed and replaced, and they were thus transformed into the G2 droids that now populate the Star Tours queue to this very day. When Splash Mountain closed of May of 2023, none of the figures survived the transition into Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which makes these two featherless friends the last vestiges of America Sings. And they're still in Tomorrowland. So you see, whenever you're at a Disney park, you could be surrounded by history and never even know it, no matter how new the attraction. I was gonna make this video longer because there are definitely some that I didn't talk about that I would love to talk about. So if I skipped your favorite, go ahead and let me know down in the comments, and then maybe I'll do a part 2. But until then, that's all for now. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my patrons. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Let's just say in recent days, we went from a fleet of 23 boats to now 18. So if you see anything suspicious out here, like a skipper on a boat, let me know.
Oh, Winston.
Now right behind me here is the world